You've sent us your sources on what might be the most anticipated K-drama adaptation of the moment, and we are ready to cut through the hype.
We are.
Today, we're plunging into the world of Scent of the Night, the upcoming historical romance based on the huge webtoon.
And our mission, as always, is pretty clear. We're not just here to, summarize the plot.
No.
We need to pull out the core themes, the really surprising character details that make this more than just another historical drama, and maybe most importantly, figure out why the creative team is such a massive signal.
It really is. I mean, this is going to be a global event.
Absolutely.
And what's immediately interesting here is the tonal challenge. The sources keep describing the story as passionate, sad, and this is the key word, cheeky.
Right.
That's a serious tightrope to walk, especially with the rumored cast Lee Min-ho and Moon Go-young, and a director whose projects basically become cultural phenomena. You need to know why this combination is what promises fireworks.
And that tonal complexity, that mix of sad and cheeky, is exactly where we should start. I mean, if you look at the source material, the stage is set in one of the most, dramatically rich periods in Korean history.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The setting. The sources are very specific. The Joseon Dynasty. And they make a point to emphasize this was a time of pretty significant societal constraints, specifically the oppression that women faced. This isn't just wallpaper.
Not at all. It's the primary antagonist of the story.
It is. So how do you square that? How do you have a drama that's described as passionate and cheeky, even a romantic comedy in some places, with a setting that is so fundamentally oppressive for the characters?
That's the conflict right there.
Yeah.
Joseon society, especially for women, meant these incredibly rigid expectations.
Yeah.
Their lives were, completely dictated by male relatives, by these strict societal norms.
So if the world is built to crush individual desire, then the only way to get that cheekiness or that passion in there is through some kind of radical, dangerous defiance.
Exactly. The romance itself becomes an act of rebellion. That's the key takeaway from the sources. The fact that it's passionate, sad, and cheeky tells us the show isn't going to be a lecture. It's going to use those constraints to fuel this emotionally explosive story. The tension is all about an individual's will versus, fate or society.
It's about people deciding their desires matter more than the destiny that's been handed to them.
That's it.
And that idea, that desire, leads us straight to the duo at the heart of this. If the world is oppression, then the characters have to be agents of change. So let's start with Seo Jaha. She sounds like she's basically the living embodiment of that cheeky defiance.
She absolutely is. The sources really define her by her refusal to conform. She's a woman who actively pushes back against what society expects of her, rejects her fate, and just bravely goes after what she wants.
Staying true to herself, even in Joseon, that's a big deal.
A very big deal. She's actively trying to break her chains.
And her character sets up the perfect high-stakes dynamic for her counterpart, Seo Jaha. This is where the story gets really interesting, I think, beyond just a simple star-crossed lover's plot.
Oh, for sure. Seo Jaha, who Lee Min-ho is reportedly playing, is the other side of that coin. He isn't defined by open defiance. He's defined by profound concealment.
Concealment?
He loves Seo Jaha. She represents his true desire, but he is completely bound by his own desperate circumstances. By this destiny he adopted, he has to hide his true self, which makes the romance with her almost a death sentence.
Okay, this is where we need to spend some real time because this is the engine of the whole show. We have to unpack the sheer audacity of Seo Jaha's backstory. He wasn't born into this life.
Not even close. And this backstory is critical. His original identity puts him at the absolute lowest level of Joseon society. He grew up in a humble but happy family as the son of a butcher.
And a butcher wasn't just a job back then, was it?
No. Butchers, the Chunmin class, were the lowest rung on the social ladder. They were seen with contempt, they were marginalized, and their children had basically zero hope of ever moving up.
So he wasn't just poor, he was structurally locked out of high society.
Precisely. His original identity is a social death sentence in that world. And then his life completely falls apart after his father's death, which triggers this huge pivot.
A pivot is an understatement. He performs a total identity overhaul. He assumes the role of the son of Seo Dong-won, who is the wealthiest man in Hanyang.
Think about that jump, from the lowest class to the highest possible non-royal status. A Yangban heir.
So the conflict isn't just about forbidden love, it's about this massive hidden class conflict.
Exactly. And think about the day-to-day pressure. If anyone found out he was really a butcher's son, I mean, it wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be the complete collapse of this powerful family's reputation. It could mean ruin, social, if not literal, execution for him.
So his love for Seo Hong, a relationship that would demand honesty and openness, is the single biggest threat to this entire constructed reality he needs to survive.
Yes. His whole life is a lie built on the ashes of his past.
And the contrast with Seo Hong is just brilliant. She's fighting to break out of society's rules to be free.
While he's fighting desperately to stay in an identity that's suffocating him, but also gives him safety and power, she's the revolutionary.
And he's the ultimate imposter.
I mean, the layers there are just incredible. The man who seems to have everything is actually trapped by a fate he chose himself. A fate that depends on him never showing who he really is.
While the woman who has nothing is, in a way, more free because she refuses to play by their rules, the story is setting them up for this huge collision between authenticity and, well, fabrication.
It creates a tremendous emotional weight.
Right.
We aren't just rooting for them to overcome, a disapproving dad. We're rooting for them to survive a fabricated identity that's connected to every powerful person in the capital.
The demands on the actors here, especially Lee Min-ho as Seo Jaha, are they're immense. He has to play the aristocrat, but also let you see the anxiety and longing of the man he was.
And a story this complex, this layered, it needs a very specific kind of artistic vision to make it work.
That's the perfect segue, because a plot this elaborate requires a real creative powerhouse.
For sure.
So let's pivot. Section 3. The creative powerhouse behind the adaptation. The sources all point to one name. The director, Lee Eung-bok.
And his involvement isn't just, notable. It's basically a guarantee of a certain level of quality and ambition. Just look at his resume.
I think it's credible.
Descendants of the Sun, Goblin, Mr. Sunshine, the Sweet Home series, Dear Ex. This is not a director who does just one thing.
Exactly. And you can see the two skill sets that Scent of the Night absolutely demands. First, you look at Mr. Sunshine. That shows his total mastery of historical detail, that grand cinematic scale. He can weave dense political stuff into a really personal story, so you know the Joseon setting is going to feel real and oppressive.
But then you have Goblin and Descendants of the Sun. And those shows prove he can create these iconic romances that they become cultural touchstones. They're driven by this amazing chemistry and emotional urgency.
Right, and then there's Sweet Home, which shows he can do high-concept spectacle.
That combination is everything. For a drama to be passionate, sad, and cheeky, you need a director who can pivot. He can go from the huge tragedy of the era to these small, witty moments between the leads, and it all feels like one story.
Yeah, his track record sets the bar very, very high. This isn't going to be some cheap production. It's going to be a globally competitive series.
And his reputation is probably why we're hearing this casting news. The sources say Lee Min-ho and Moon Ga-young are in talks, which would be a huge reunion for them.
A director like that attracts top talent.
Of course. Actors know his projects become global hits.
And Lee Min-ho is specifically named for the role of Seo Jaha. I mean, that role needs the kind of global star power and gravitas that he brings. That casting just screams prestige series.
That pairing makes so much sense. It's about market recognition, sure, but also acting skill. They can both do that blend of deep emotion and broad appeal that you need to sell a cheeky historical romance to the whole world.
Okay, so before we wrap up, what's the reality for everyone listening who's already clearing their schedule? Is a trailer dropping next week?
Not quite. As of late 2025, the sources are all clear. This is a major project in development, so no official release date yet, no confirmed streaming platform.
So negotiations are probably happening now for a big global platform, I'd imagine?
Almost certainly, given the names involved. For anyone who wants to jump into the source material now, the original webtoon is likely on platforms like Naver Webtoon or Kakao Page, but we'll need some patience for the on-screen version.
Patience. Okay. Let's do a quick recap of what we've learned. We've got the high-stakes romance of Seo Hong and Seo Jaha, driven by her defiance and his life-or-death secret.
Right.
All set against this incredibly oppressive Joseon class system where just being discovered means ruin. And it's all being guided by this powerhouse creative team led by director Lee Eung-bok, which is our guarantee of quality.
Which leaves us with one final thought for you to chew on while you wait. We've established that Seo Hong is fighting the fate that society imposed on her.
Right, she rejects it.
But Seo Jaha is fighting to maintain the fate he chose, the one he adopted. So, given that he, a butcher's son, is pretending to be Han Yang's wealthiest heir, a fabrication that gives him power but also puts him in a cage, what's the greater tragedy? Is it the woman who risks social ruin to be free? Or is it the man who got all the wealth and status he could want but at the cost of his own soul?
A golden cage. That's the thematic hook, isn't it? The question of whether an adopted fate is any less restrictive than a rejected one.
Exactly.
When this drama finally arrives, we won't just be watching for the romance. We'll be watching to see which of them turns out to be the true prisoner. Thank you for diving deep with us into Scent of the Night.